How do they really go about making the monsters look as scary as possible? Let's return to the continent and see what The Witcher is really like behind the scenes. Henry Cavill reportedly makes a whopping $400,000 per episode for The Witcher, but the actor goes above and beyond to earn that paycheck. So much so that he turned down his own stunt double because he wanted to be a badass like Geralt of Rivera. But why would Henry want to risk his life when he could have had a stuntman handle the rough and tumble stuff? Basically, he wanted to make the action sequences look as authentic as possible, and that meant getting his hands dirty.
It's really important that the character exists within the action as well, rather than just an acting scene and then you have an action scene which is completely separate, then you're back to the acting again.
Unsurprisingly, Henry also learned how to wield a sword like a real-life medieval monster slayer, and that meant learning to become one with his weapon. Henry was always packing swords on the set, and he trained with them between takes in order to sharpen his skills with the blade. Check him out in action. Henry Cavill wasn't the only fella who had to get physical for the fight sequences, though. James Frater was the cameraman who was tasked with filming the majority of the actors' fight sequences. To make the scenes more riveting, James used a Steadicam to get up close and personal with Henry. While this technique is great for making the audience feel like they're part of the brawling, it required James to put his body on the line. He even went crashing through a wall while filming that scary fight scene against Striga. Now that's what you call going the extra mile for the show. And I'm sure Henry was delighted to work alongside a cameraman who captured his stunts in all their gritty glory. It goes without saying that Henry's efforts have paid off. Can you think of a better choice to play Geralt?
What happened with you?
But did you know that he almost didn't get the part? That's right, the actor who played freaking Superman wasn't just offered the part on the spot. And this was after he made it clear just how much he wanted to play the hunky warrior. You see, dear viewer, it was a dream gig for the actor, as he was already a fan of the Witcher books and video games.
I was a big fan of the game and that's how I discovered it. That's why I discovered The Witcher.
However, his first audition didn't go according to plan, and he was turned down by the show's creators. But he made an impression nonetheless. Even after going through the process of auditioning over 200 other actors,
She took one look at me, screamed, vomited, and passed out.
showrunner Lauren Schmidt couldn't stop thinking about Henry.
This happens all the time.
It was his accent that really struck a chord with her. She kept replaying it in her head whenever she thought about the character. So she invited Henry back, he knocked it out of the park, and it all worked out. Now he gets to play one of his favorite characters, and the internet gets to thirst over him taking hot baths.
I will not suffer tonight sober just because you hid your sausage in the wrong royal pantry.
Of course, Henry wasn't the only actor who strived for authenticity in The Witcher. Anya Chalotra was also offered a stand-in after accepting the role of Yennefer. That's because the character had to engage in some risque scenes. At first, Anya was reluctant to take off her clothes and accepted the body double to get jiggy on her behalf. But after seeing how Yennefer's lovemaking scenes looked with the other actress, she changed her mind. Anya felt that her actual body had to be present so that her character's journey would look and feel real. Here's what she had to say in an interview with Digital Spy. I found watching the body double scenes really hard, so if we were going to talk about the sex scenes, then it would be how we were best going to film them, so that I was comfortable and you still get what we needed for the story to move on. The risque scenes would have made most actors feel uncomfortable, but that wasn't the toughest part of Anya's experience on The Witcher. In the show, Yennefer had some spinal and jaw deformities, and it leads to her experiencing some harsh discrimination.
6.
4.
What are you doing?
So,
Nailing the character's troubled experience meant that Anya had to make some sacrifices on her end too. The makeup process involved Anya wearing a brace and a mouth guard, which caused her some serious pain. As a result, Anya came out of the show with mouth ulcers and other aches and pains. That being said, the actress told Decider that the painful prosthetics enhanced her performance. Other than the pains of wearing it, it really did help. It changed my physicality. I looked at the floor more, and I became more insecure as a result. That only ever helped the place Yennefer was at in her life anyway.
I've been here for weeks and can barely do shit.
Anya went on to say that playing Yennefer took its toll on her mental state as well, but that helped her get into the character's own negative headspace and deliver one heck of a performance.
My name is Yennefer.
Do you know how many people wouldn't blink if you died?
It wasn't just the actors who had their work cut out for them on The Witcher. Any show that boasts as much imagination and scope as The Witcher is always going to feature some ambitious VFX sequences. So the creators had to get, well, creative. To develop the look and feel of the continent, the folks over at Framestone built entire locations using CGI, which they often combined with digital matte paintings for extra oomph. Creating new worlds using computers is difficult enough. That said, the biggest challenge was ensuring that the digital locations matched the scenes shot in physical environments. The Witcher has a very distinct and gritty look, and Framestone's VFX wizards worked hard to ensure that nothing looked out of place. They also helped out with some of the show's craziest blood and gore sequences, so the combat looked much gnarlier. The Witcher's bestiary of monsters are scary enough to give anyone nightmares, but even the biggest scaredy cat in the world will admit that the creatures look impressive. But how did the show's creators go about haunting our dreams with their grotesque wonders?
Oh, aren't you just the cutest, most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my entire life?
Julian Perry and his team worked super hard on bringing the beasts to life. Naturally, that involves some research and planning. Fortunately, The Witcher's Rogues Gallery is based on actual Slavic mythology, so they had plenty of historical information about them at their disposal. For the most part, though, they tried to make the creatures look exactly like Lauren Schmidt's interpretation from the books and video games. So they started off by drawing the creatures, then turned them into cool models that would look amazing as ornaments in any household. However, providing detailed concept art didn't always guarantee results when it came to getting the job done. That was especially true when it came to bringing the Kikimora to life. According to Julian, this rascal was tricky to create, as it has so many legs and unique combat skills, so they had to put their thinking caps on. Here's what Julian told Animation Magazine on the matter. It's tricky to keep the creature balanced and attacking at the same time. We knew from the script what type of creature it needed to be, did some quick motion studies, and shoehorned those all into place to come up with the final animation. The Witcher creators also tried to avoid green screens and special effects whenever possible.
I suppose that's one way of getting some rest.
While these techniques were necessary from time to time, they always set out to film scenes whenever it was possible to do so. That included the scene with the ghouls, which you'd be forgiven for thinking were completely CGI. As it turns out, though, these creatures were brought to life thanks to a combination of motion capture and CGI, with small performers brought in to interact with Henry Cavill. The digital magic dust was then sprinkled onto the creatures in the post-production stage, and the rest is history. Those are just a couple of examples of the monster magic on display. Each creature brought about its own set of challenges, and the creators deserve all of the praise for treating us to an array of fantastic beasts. Did any of these revelations surprise you? Let us know in the comments below! And while you're here, be sure to check out our video that lists even more reasons to watch The Witcher.